In this presentation, I'm going to show you how you can more than double your revenue by using marketing tests. So first, I'm going to cover what are marketing tests. Then I'm going to show you why do they matter, the big three reasons with examples. Then I'm going to show you what are the different types of marketing tests you can run, because you're going to use different types based on what type of business you have and what revenue levels you're at. Then when should you start using marketing tests? And it's likely not when you think. Then I'm going to show you what should you test. So how do we segment the different marketing tests inside of our company? Then we talk about what should you test first. So how do you prioritize all of the different tests that you can run? We use something called the ICS score. And then I'm going to show you the problem with most marketing tests, why your marketing tests suck or why you're unable to launch marketing tests yourself. I'm actually going to screen share our own marketing testing system so you can see exactly what that looks like. And then I'm going to end this by showing you results from our most recent marketing tests, our most recent split tests, and the changes that we made from it so you can use it to increase conversions inside your business. So really quickly before I get started, who is this guy? My name is Ravi Abuvala. I'm the founder of Scaling with Systems. I'm quite literally the systems guy. I have systems for every single thing that I do, from how we score appointments that come into our business, to how we fulfill our client success using client success pipelines, to how my house manager takes over my day-to-day tasks like charging my devices, doing my laundry, and filling my protein shakers. I was able to scale my business, Scaling with Systems, from zero to over $25 million in sales in 48 months, serving over 2,000 businesses. And my mission in life is to help you build a business that serves you instead of you serving it. And that's because I've been able to have that privilege myself. I have a business that serves me. I've been able to get my pilot's license, buy a plane, go on dozens of trips a year with my friends and family to places like Dubai and China and Costa Rica, hosting company retreats, large masterminds, and spending quality time with my friends and family. So one of the systems I want to talk about today that has given me that life are marketing tests. So what exactly is a marketing test? Well, marketing test is when you compare two or more versions of a marketing element to determine which one performs better. So in essence, if you know that you have an opt-in page converting at 15%, well, you might want to test a new opt-in page in hopes that it'll convert at 20% or 25%. And the better that you can get your conversion rates in your funnels, et cetera, the more money you can make, which I'll talk about here in a moment. So every marketing test is going to have a control, which is going to be what you're already doing that's working. So it's important you know what your control is and you have the data on your control. So for example, in the one I said a moment ago, the opt-in page, if I was running a test against my opt-in page, I would need to know that my original was at 15%, my original opt-in page converted 15%. So that way, when I was doing the variation, I could see, is this converting better or worse than what my original opt-in page is? And that's what the variation is that is the thing that you're testing against the control. And you could either have one variation or you could have multiple variations depending on the types of tests, which I'll talk about here in a moment. As you conduct more and more tests, your control always improves. So this is why we love marketing tests, because it's kind of like a little bit of a compound effect. You could start where, let's say, your opt-in page conversion rate is 15%, and then through a variation test, it becomes 18%. Well, 18% is the new baseline. So then you do another test and it becomes 22%. So 22% is the new baseline, it's the new control. Then you do another test and it's actually back down to 15%. Well, now you know that that previous control that you just had is actually better than the new one that you tested. And so the baseline is now the 22% that I said here a moment ago. So why do marketing tests matter? Why should you listen to this whole presentation, and why should you consider implementing it inside your business? Well, there's three main reasons why marketing tests matter. The first is that marketing tests can help you run your business based on data instead of emotion. So this is a screenshot inside of our membership site, Scaling School, where I was explaining to them how we run marketing tests and the importance of it. And I was showing them that on March 13th, we ran a webinar called the Member Method Webinar. And the people that were on the webinar, we converted 14.7% of them into our paid program. And then on March 27th, I ran another webinar, and I took all the lessons from that first webinar on March 13th and I implemented it on March 27th. I spent way more time. I made the presentation way better looking, created an FAQ section, a bunch of other stuff. And I was convinced that this new presentation was going to convert way better than the last one did. And as you can see here on the bottom, it actually converted at 8.9%, the new one, compared to the old one, which is 14.7%. So it converted almost 50% worse than the original one that I created. And if I had to just base it solely off of the emotion I was feeling, how great I thought the new one was going to be, et cetera, I may have continued using the 50% worse one moving forward. So marketing tests allow us to identify controls and figure out, okay, let's make decisions based on what actually is working better, not what we feel is working better. So that's the first main reason. The second main reason is it can help you make more money. So in this example here, I was running a marketing test, and in one variation, we had a sales page converting at 7.37%, and the other variation, the sales page was converting at 5.77%. When I was running this test, this 5.77% was the original control, and this 7.37% was the variation. Now, as you can see in the screenshot, it switched. The control is now the 7.37 because I made the variation the control, like I talked about earlier, as it became the new baseline. But in this example here, the original, we were converting at 5.77%, and then we were able to convert at 7.37%. So all the traffic going to that page, I started immediately making more money without any more work just by doing this marketing test. And the third main reason we like marketing tests is because they help us also save money as well. So we recently did a marketing test where our membership site, Scaling School, where we teach everything we've learned going from zero to over $25 billion in sales in a do-it-yourself kind of environment. We were running ads to a sales funnel, and we were trying to convert people through there, and our cost per acquisition was $142, meaning I was paying Facebook $142 to get somebody to pay me $97 a month. Now, our average order value was $208, so I didn't mind that because we had a bunch of upsells and downsells, but you can see that our cost per acquisition was $142. Now, on the other hand, the site that we use, School, we actually tested running ads directly to their sales page instead of our own sales page, and you can see the cost per acquisition was $52 with the average order value being $97. And so the About Us page converted at 4.7% and the funnel converted at 1.5%. So now we're starting to redirect more traffic to the About Us page and figuring out how do we get some of these upsells that we had in the sales funnel over into the About Us page where it's essentially a 3 times higher conversion percentage. Okay, so those are the three main reasons. They help you base decisions off of data, they help you make more money, and they help you save money. So what are the different types of marketing tests? Well, there's two main ones that you should concern yourself with. Everything else is just noise. So the first is going to be called A/B testing, and that's exactly what it sounds like. You're testing A versus B. So you have all of these visitors, typically to a website or something like that, and you're going to take 50% of them and you're going to send them to a control. So this is the thing that you already know has worked in the past, and then you're going to take 50% of them and you're going to run them to the variation. Now, one of the questions I always get is like, Ravi, if I already know my control is converting at, let's say, 15%, why can't I just do 2 different variations instead of having a control and a variation? And the truth is because you want to make sure it's as true a marketing test as possible. So what happens if you do a big organic push where people know, like, and trust you more than people that were coming from paid ads? Well, if you didn't keep that traffic perfectly divided 50-50, then it may seem like these variations are performing better than the control when you didn't have that organic traffic. So I hope that makes sense. But in essence, no matter what test you're running, you always need to have a baseline, always, so that way you can know no matter what is going on in the traffic and the market and all that stuff, that it's a fair actual representation of if I sent this traffic here, if I sent this traffic here, which one would convert better. So you have the control and then you have the variation. And typically in an A/B testing, you're testing one thing. That's the whole point, A versus B. So you're not testing 50 different things. You're not going to test the headline, the color of the button, the image, all that stuff. You're literally just testing the headline, or you're just testing the color of the button, or you're just testing asking for a phone number. You're testing for one thing, and then you figure out which one has a higher conversion percentage. So let's say that this variation is plus 10%. That now becomes the new control like I talked about before. So that's an A/B test, and then you essentially recycle that process all over again, right? So the control was red, the variation was black. The black gave us a plus 10% conversion. So the black is now the new control, and now we're going to test black versus purple. So that's an A/B test. The second type of testing is what's known as a multivariate test, okay? And this one's a little bit more advanced. And this is essentially where you're testing multiple different things going on at the same time. So instead of just testing one thing versus the other, you're testing the control is still that red box, but one variation is a black box with a yellow border. Another variation is a purple box with a black border. So you have not just different color boxes, but now you have borders around it as well. These are multivariate tests, right? And so you're setting 33% to one, 33% to the other, and 33% to the other. And let's say in this example, the purple box with the black dashes became the 1 by 10%, so that is the new control moving forward. Now, for the vast majority of people, multivariate test is going to be way too advanced. I highly, highly, highly suggest you do not do multivariate tests unless you are an absolute advanced marketer, and even then, only if you have the right software in place in order to test it, because it gets way too confusing. Instead, in this example, what you should do is essentially do an A/B test. You test red versus black, and then you could take the control of that, the winner of that, and test that versus purple, and then you test the borders, not borders. So for majority of people watching this, even us, the majority of the time, we're just using regular A/B testing. Anything above that, like multivariate, it's too confusing, and you don't know if this is actually, you're running the test correctly, okay? Now, let's talk about when should you start testing in your business. So some of you may be watching this, you're just starting your business. Other of you may be way along your business. So when do you test your business? Well, a lot of you guys probably know who this guy is right here, Alex Hormozi. He's written a lot of great books, like $100 million offers and $100 million leads. Well, he once said, Ravi, you have great, sorry, this is actually a separate presentation I'm putting together. He once said, more, better, new. So this is essentially how you decide when you should start testing. So whenever you have something that's working and you're trying to scale, you should just try to push more traffic to it. So if you're spending $100 a day, spend $200 a day. If you're making one short a day, make 2 shorts a day. If you're making 1 video a week, make 2 videos a week. Always do more because you're already converting more. And I agree with this. That's why this is on here. But then next you want to figure out, okay, I was spending $100 a day. Now I'm spending $200 a day, but how do I also double the amount of results that I'm getting from that $200? Well, that's when the marketing tests come in play. You're going to start testing some of the things like testing the ad creative, testing the opt-in pages, testing the video sales letter page, testing the sales page, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how you make things better. So you increase it by 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, et cetera, et cetera. And only very rarely, only when you're like at a massive level and you're just trying to really make yourself different in the marketplace, can you start doing new things like new channels, et cetera, et cetera. But for the vast majority of people, you just need to do more. And then for those of you that are already doing more, but you want to get more from your more, you can start focusing on better. So I hope that makes sense how I described it. Now that we know what marketing tests are, we know why we should test them, and we know when we should consider starting to test, let's ask ourselves, what exactly is there to test? So what are we testing in our marketing funnels? Well, we break it down very simply. We break it down first into view to click. So these are all the things that we can test that get somebody who sees an asset of ours to actually click on the asset, because that's almost what you're always going to be doing, whether it's a YouTube video or it's an Instagram post or it is an ad somewhere. You're essentially trying to get somebody to click more. So these could be things like testing the ad creative, testing when you do calls to action, et cetera, et cetera. So that is view to click. The next is going to be click to lead. So when someone does click, you want to see how many people you can get to actually give you their contact information. So this could be changing the opt-in page headline. This could be changing the messaging to better match the ads. This could be changing, adding friction or removing friction, like adding phone numbers or removing emails, et cetera, et cetera. The next is going to be lead to booked. So how many people that then give you their contact information are actually booking a call on their own? You want that number as high as possible. You don't want to have to chase every single lead down to try to convince them to book. You want people to be booking on their own. It makes it way easier to scale. So these are going to be these are going to be things you're testing, like video sales letters, social proof on the sales page. It could be stuff like your email newsletter, all of those different things to convince somebody that's giving you their contact information to go ahead and book on their own. And then for more advanced people, there's things like click to sale. So how do you optimize your sales page itself if you're trying to sell a low ticket product or a membership product or a webinar or something like that. And then also sale to upsell. So in the example I talked about earlier, our membership site, we have multiple upsells after they buy the first thing. And so we're like, hey, do you also want this thing? And you also want that thing? And you also want that thing? And so we're trying to increase our average order value. So you can test that around. And there's way more, but for majority of people watching this, you're typically going to be service-based businesses, coaches, consultants, something like that, where you're just trying to get people to book calls to speak with you. And so those first 3 are really the main ones. Now we need to answer, what should you test first? So now your brain should start moving a little bit. You're like, okay, marketing tests are important. And there's all these, I could do ad creatives. I could do opt-in pages. I could do headlines. I could do a video sales letter, adding social proof, not having social proof. There's like 7 million different variations that you could do in order to scale. And so you need to have some way of identifying which ones do you start with first. And in order to do that, we follow a framework known as the ICS score. And essentially the ICS score is when you rate your tests and determine which one you're going to do first. So I stands for importance. On a scale of 0 to 10, how important is this for your business? So for example, something that directly impacts your revenue would be something really important. Something that doesn't really directly impact your revenue would be something not that important. So to kind of drive that point home, if I was running a test and I was like, hey, if we tested the sales page, we could maybe get more people to buy our products. I would say that's close to an 8, 9, or 10 because we're getting more people to buy our products. On the other hand, if I were to test, I don't know, let's say a line in my YouTube description, maybe I wanted to change a few words in there. How important is that? It's like, okay, are people reading the description that much? And like, how much is that impacting it? So that might be a 1 or a 2, okay? The next is going to be C in the ICS score, and that is confident. How confident are you that you're right with your tests? Remember, it's way easier and better to do the test if you feel very confident that you know that it's going to be right. Doesn't mean you're going to be right, but of course, if you have two sides of the spectrum, one time when you're very confident about something, another time you're not, you might as well do the one that you're more confident about, especially because as you do more and more of these things, you kind of get a better understanding and you're more right than you are wrong. So a confidence score would be like, for example, if I'll show you a little bit later, but on one of our sales pages, the button on to go to the checkout form said, go to step 2. And I tested it to say, double your show up rates today. And I was pretty confident, but by saying double your show up rates instead of going to step 2, that's going to be way more enticing and desiring. So I put that as like a 9 or a 10, that I was confident that was going to be better than just go to step 2. And then there's simple. So simple is, how simple is it to implement this? And this is really, really important. One of our values in our company is simplicity. Another value is experimentation. And so if you can make something simple to test it, do that simple test first versus doing the more complex test. So going back to what I said a second ago, that button, all I had to do was change the text on the button. So in that example there, it took me 3 seconds. I just changed a few words. So that would be a 10 out of 10 simple. So going to that split test for the button on that sales page, it was a sales page test, which means that it directly impacted revenue. So that's probably a 10 out of 10. I was confident that it was more enticing. So that was probably a 10 out of 10. And I just changed a few buttons around, a few words around. And so it was simple. So that's a 10 out of 10. So all in all, you're scoring this on a scale of 0 to 30. And what you essentially want to do is you want to sort by the highest ICS score and work your way down. So I would probably start with that one first because that's a 30 out of 30. And I'd go all the way down, and maybe some point I'd get to the YouTube description one, but likely not even, because that's probably going to be like a 1 or a 5 on the ICS score. So that's how you rank. That's a really important part of this. That's how you rank which test to do first, because you always want to essentially be doing the things that are going to have the biggest impact on you scaling your business. Now, let's quickly cover what are some of the biggest problems with marketing tests. So I've worked with over 2,000 businesses. We've done thousands of marketing tests ourselves, and these are the main areas I see people tripping up on. So the first is that they don't do enough testing in general. So they don't have a testing system, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And so every once in a while, you might be watching this video and you're like, oh, we need to do marketing tests. So you do marketing tests, you guys get in this groove of it, you do it for a week or 2 weeks, and then it just kind of falls in the wayside. You don't do it anymore, right? So there's not enough testing going on in general, and so you're not able to increase your conversion rates. The second thing is there's no control. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but a lot of people think that just because they know something performed historically well in the past, they know the numbers there, that it's going to perform historically in the future, it's going to perform in the future, but in reality, that's not always the case. So you always want to make sure you always have a control. I don't care if it extends out the length of your test, et cetera, et cetera. You always need to make sure you have the original thing there so you can make sure, is it actually better or not? The next is the wrong type of test. So you are running a multivariate test when you really need to be running a split test. This happens the most. So you maybe are optimizing for, you're trying to figure out how do you get more book calls, and so you're working on that lead to book call thing, and you're changing 500 things at the same time, and so you don't actually know which one actually made the results. And also, you're focusing on lead to booked call when you're not even getting enough leads in the first place. So maybe we need to go further up the funnel to run a test there, closer to the view to click side of things, okay? The next is going to be not enough data. So this kind of talks about the A/B split test and multivariate test. But if you're running a multivariate test, you need to have a bunch of traffic coming in, a bunch of data coming in to be able to test whether it's this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one, because there's so many different variations inside of there, right? So you want to make sure you have enough data. And the other thing is you want to make sure that you've interpreted the results correctly. I see a lot of people, they see the results, they think, oh, because I ran this test this way, then this is what we need to do moving forward for all of our different funnels that we have. Or one of a million different things that could go wrong, but you want to make sure that you're actually reading the test. Is the test results, did it confirm your hypothesis? Why did it confirm your hypothesis? Or did it negate your hypothesis? Why did it negate it? And how are you going to use that information moving forward, right? And the nice thing is that this is all solved with a system. That's why we're scaling with systems. That's why we're a system company, is because if you can implement a system, then you take a lot of this guesswork and human error out of it. So I'm going to walk through really quickly our marketing testing system. So we use Asana for our marketing testing system, and it's a board that we set up. And so on the left-hand side, you can see it says backlog. So these are all just kind of random ideas that we have of tests that we want to run. And then you can see view to click. So this is, like I said earlier, people that seeing our stuff to click on them. Click to lead. So after they click to become a lead. Click to sale. So this is like, we run a lot of low ticket funnels and membership site funnels. Sale to upsell. So this would be upsells on the back end of our funnels. And then lead to book. So once someone becomes a lead, how many of them actually book a call to speak with us? Now, there's other things you could add in there, like book to sale and all that other stuff, but this is specifically marketing tests, not like sales tests. And remember, you need enough data. So if you're getting 10, 15 calls a week, that's probably not going to be enough data to really test whether this new one line in your sales script is going to be making a difference or not. And then every single task that we have that we're running, which I'll talk about here in a second, has that ICS score. And I sort all of our tasks by the highest ICS score. So that way, whenever we're looking at this, for example, the next one that we want to run is probably going to be this new sales page that we're testing out, which is going to go underneath click to sale right here. And this is at the top because it has a 23 out of 30 on the ICS score, right? And you don't see a lot of tests in here because we do a lot of tests. If I actually remove this filter, it shows all of the tests we've already run already. And as you can see here, there's literally dozens and dozens of tests that we've run. And this is actually a duplicate of an old one that we had. So we had way more before this. So I'm going to go back to incomplete tests. And then let me show you essentially how we create a test from scratch. So we set up a template inside of Asana so that we have dates. So whatever the date that we're starting. So let's say today is June 4th. So we'll say 6/4. And then we'll say the marketing test name. So let's say I wanted to test the scaling school sales page test, right? Then I'd come down here and I would see there's an ICS score that we would give it. So first I would do is add the instructions. So I have a marketing team, and so if I come up with a test idea, I want to tell them what I want the test to be. So, hey, we're testing out the scaling school sales page. I want to test this thing versus this thing. This is how I do it, et cetera, et cetera. Then we want to rate the importance, confidence, and simple score. So how important do we think it is? Let's say I'm going to say it's a 9 out of 10. How confident? I'm pretty confident. I'll say 8 out of 10. And it's going to be kind of difficult to do because we have to change a whole sales page. So we're going to rate it a 3 out of 10. So 9 plus 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 out of 30. Hopefully I did that math right. So the total ICS score is going to be 20, which means I'm going to come up here. I'm going to rate this 20 out of 30. And bada bing, bada boom, it shows it. I guess my screen might be cut off a little bit here, but it shows it right there on 20 out of 30. And then what we do is we link the experiment results. So we'll link the actual software that we're using that'll have the different data on there, so it's easy to reference. The date that we started it, then we put the date that we ended it, and we also put the variation. So we'll put the control. Typically what we'll do is take a screenshot of what the original control was. We'll put it right here, and then we'll put the variations. We'll take a screenshot and put it right here. The reason I like screenshots is because we do so many tests that sometimes it's hard to find with some of the previous variations we did because we changed that sales page later on. So we just put screenshots here instead. And the final thing we'll do is we put our insights and learnings on the bottom, and that way we're just continuously learning from the marketing tests that we're running so we can optimize them further and further. And then whenever we're ready to run it, we'll just put it in the view to click, click to lead, click to sale, et cetera, segments there. So that is our marketing testing system. Now let me finish this by going through some of the examples of some of the most recent marketing tests that we ran. So one of the first ones that we did was running one of our low ticket products called Show Up Secrets, and we tested selling it for $7 versus selling it for $37. And of course, you would think that if you sold something for cheaper, it would convert better. But actually, if you look right here, if I actually move this up a little bit here, the sales converted at 4.52% on 7, and it converted at 3.24% on 37. So you were right. It converted better. It converted just slightly better. So let me move my thing here. 3.24 divided by 4.52. So it converted roughly 30% better. So that's pretty great, right? So yay, maybe that's the winner. But remember what I talked about earlier about interpreting your marketing results? The issue with this is that the cost that we got, the earnings that we made for every single time someone landed on that page on the $7 one was 56 cents compared to the $37 one was $2.57. So although it converted slightly higher, the money that we made per person visiting the page dropped by, I don't know, 0.56 divided by 2.57. It dropped by 80%, essentially, I think, if that math's right. A lot, essentially. So I'm not the best at math, I'm sorry. But it dropped by a lot. So even though it looks like, oh yeah, great, let's run this to the $7 one, in reality, it was actually costing us way more money because we weren't liquidating more ad spend. So that was one example. The second example that I did was I tested our order bump. So an order bump is when you're buying something like a low ticket product and you're checking out $7, $27, $37, $97. And it says, hey, don't forget, you should also buy this one thing here. It's exactly if you go to any kind of grocery market and they have all those candy and magazines and drinks as you walk out the door. Those are super high margin items that you're easy to just grab for a few extra dollars and throw it in your cart. It's the same thing virtually. So on here, we have order bumps. And as you can see in our control in this example here, once again, this is what I talked about earlier. I'm sorry that the naming convention is. This was the variation at the time, says we are converting at 50% for this test I was running for this order bump. And the control back then was converting at 33%. So I was able to get a lift from 33% to 50% just by changing some text on the actual order bump itself, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. So 33 out of 50 is what? Let's do this. 33 divided by 50. So we saw roughly a 40% increase just by changing a few texts in the wording that we were doing here. So let's actually walk through what the wording was. So this was the control. And as you can see in the very beginning, I said only $97 a day. So at the very beginning of the sales copy for the control, I said only $97 a day. I told them how much it was before I even covered any of the sales copy to convince them why they needed it in the first place. So what I did was I ran a test, a variation, where instead of putting the $97 at the very front, I changed it to one-time offer. And then at the very bottom, after I kind of sold them on why they needed it, I said you can get it for only $97 risk-free with our 30-day no questions asked money back guarantee. And as you can see here, it took the conversion rate from 33% to 50% when we ran that test. The next one that we did recently was, remember, the grayed out one was the control at the time, and this new one is the variation, which is now the control. And so in this one, you can see that the sales page converted at 5.77%. And then when I ran the test, it converted at 7.37%. So once again, back to our math whizzes out there, 5.77 divided by 7.37. So that was almost a 22% increase in conversion percentage just by changing this one thing I'm going to show you here. And that's the power of split tests and testing, because I didn't have to do anything else and we already started making 20% more money. Now, what did I test? Well, this is an example of me taking a screenshot. This is actually inside of Scaling School when I was walking through what this was. But this is the original. This is the control. So you can see double your show up rate with show up secrets today. It says where to send access, get your free gift, go to step 2. And so a few things I didn't like about this. First of all, it's the color of the button is the same color as the headline box, so that was kind of confusing. It also says order info and claim free gift, which I just feel like wasn't that clear and it was not that enticing. And then also it says go to step 2 versus like something that would be like, yeah, are you ready to double your show up rates today? Now this was the variation. So you can see immediately the box went from gold, same color of button, to I changed it to black. Second main thing you'll see is the button was like this big and I changed it to much bigger. Third thing is I added an image next to the button and I said claim special offer. Yes, I want to double my show up rate and get the free gifts, compared to this one here where it just said go to step number 2. And then you can see that it says, instead of just, what did it say before, claim free gifts, it said we're ready to send access. I changed that there as well. So I changed and I think I changed, I added underneath this thing, show up secrets is not available anywhere else. Your information is secure and it can't be shared. So like immediately all these different things, and that was the thing that got us a 22% increase on the sales page conversion rate. And another example, like I talked about earlier, was where we went from running ads directly to a funnel that looks like this to running ads to the school platform About Us page. And you can see that we dropped our cost per acquisition by, it looks like about 66% if my rough math is correct there. So ladies and gentlemen, that is everything that you need to know about marketing tests. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you want access to all all of the split tests that we've ever run, then you should be considering joining Scaling School, because not only do we cover new split tests that we run in depth and the changes that we make every 2 weeks, but also you have access to every single playbook we've done, going from 0 to over $25 million online, from sales and marketing to offer to client success, et cetera, et cetera. You can go to scalingschool.com or click the QR code here. And just to show you what it looks like, there's over 50 different classes inside of here. And I kind of want to show you split test secrets, where every 2 weeks we're launching a new one there, plus dozens of other classes that you can get access to. So if you want to, go to scalingschool.com, click the link down below this video in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.